Hi, I'm Tom Migot from Tom Migot Photography, and this is a new episode of Review It with Tom Migot. And this is week 7. Well, is it? Not so sure anymore because last week there was no exposures for me to review, and this week, well, only 4, but at least 4. Those are from Matt Costa. You remember Matt has sent us numerous interesting exposures in the past weeks. Really interesting. Last week it was, or the week before, I'm getting lost now. A couple of weeks ago, anyway, when I did it with Eric Rossi, he sent us some portraiture. And you may remember a lot of them were using a nifty 50 lens, which is a 50mm lens, and it was a 1.8. And unfortunately, what we had both to say, Eric and I, was that well, Matt used the 1.8 as 1.8, and that's not always a good thing. And in fact, it's most of the time never a good thing. And so I'm here with his 4 exposures, and 2 of them are portraitures, and we can see that, well, it looks like he learned the lesson. He took our advice on board because it was not a lesson anyway at the first place. So let's start, shall we? This one is a black and white, and was shot with a 70-100mm on Nikon, because Matt shoots with Nikon, and we see that it was using a it was shooting at 200mm, so at the max, and it was at 3.5. So what do we see here? Well, first of all, because it was shooting with a lens at its maximum focal length, which is 200mm, you have what you expect to get, which is a very compacted background. As you can see, whatever was in the background, we can't really distinguish what it was, so it's all squished behind him, giving him some kind of blurred background, kind of a backdrop, which is great, which is what you want, because there's no disturbances whatsoever behind the subject, and that's all what you want in portraiture. So here, what could we say? ISO 800. Okay, we know high ISO is never a good thing, but sometimes you have no choice. And here, he has 3.5. So what we can see, because of the 3.5, clearly it was not very close to his subject, because he was using a 70-200mm lens, and I believe such a lens would require something around 45 centimeters as minimum distance between you and your subject. So, and plus focusing at 200mm, clearly you need to have a couple of meters between you and your subject. So I think he was not too close to his subject. However, shooting at 3.5, you can see his face is well in focus. Really, the front of the face is all in focus. Some part of whatever he's wearing, his jacket, is in focus as well, but that we don't really care, do we? But his ear, which is the left one, is blurred. Do we care? Not really. I mean, yeah, surely it would have been good to maybe go for a narrower aperture. I'm thinking maybe f5 would have done it, and it would just go, just the head would have been in focused. Maybe that would have been better. But then there might also be a reason why he went with 3.5. What about if he was shooting at 200mm, which is what we know, it's a fact, and therefore, you reducing the amount of light coming in. So maybe he was trying to get as much light as he could, and that's the reason why not only he went for 3.5 to get the widest aperture, but also he needed to increase the ISO to 800. Why? Because look at the shutter speed. The shutter speed here on the top corner, you can see it's 1 of 100th of a second. So that's not much. In fact, one could say that if you don't have a tripod, that would be crazy to attempt. How actually, Matt, how did you shoot that? Could you please put description of your shot in the comments down below, because I want to know if you use a tripod here. If you haven't, well, I'm quite impressed, I must say, because shooting at 200mm at 100th of a second, that's amazing, man. You're not shaking at all. So please let us know what it is. So what more could I say about this? This is this is great. I mean, he's got a very interesting physique, a nice face, good wrinkles, you know, from an elderly man. Um, it looks good. Maybe the crop. I'm not so crazy about the crop, and I don't know if that was actually shot this way or if it was cropped in post production or not. But I tried very quickly 5 minutes ago to crop it differently, and you see, unfortunately, I was missing some room above the head, and that's just a pity. But what I like about my crop is because his face is well inside the frame, whereas with Matt's crop, well, you know, the head is still there, but you know, there's a lot of space. Look at the ratio between his head and the whole torso and the jacket and t-shirt. I'm not so sure about it. It's still a nice shot, but I'm not so sure. So if I actually, you know what, I was trying to go for the third line here for the eyes and the nose, but maybe I can bring it up just to say that I didn't crop his head, and maybe it's a bit too close to the ear, so let's go to the maximum here. And I would say this is my favorite crop. So Matt, let me know in the comment again what you think of this crop. Does that work for you? Okay, I'm not saying this is the crop, but if it works for you, just let me know. I'd like to know what you think. Let's go to the next one. So the next one, so we went from monochrome to blue. This is Blue Man. Well, this is an interesting shot actually. I quite like it. Because of the physique, once again, you know, it's not about shooting beauty all the time. It could be well boring, and you know, like when you go and shooting landscape, you don't go and shoot a regular house. You're looking for a house that has character, a house that has some spirit. And it's the same thing when you shoot people, you know, unless it's your girlfriend, you ain't got no choice. But you know, go for interesting physiques. They don't need to be beauty queens. And here, he's got wrinkles, he's older, he always adds some character. So, other than that, I would say, here, Matt, the exposure is perfect. I'm talking purely in the sense of the depth of field. You know, I've talked to you about your depth of field in the previous episodes, and I think this is the best one you've got so far. I really love it. I have absolutely nothing to say about this one. It's sharp from the tip of the nose, or is it? Well, let's say it is, because I don't think I can actually zoom much. But it looks sharp from the tip of his nose to the tip of his ears. So to me, it works good. It's a bit bluish. It is. It is a bit bluish to me. The overall, I mean, another skin color. Maybe you could warm it up a little bit. You know, I would try to warm. You know, just making him look a bit more alive. So you know, warm the temperature a bit more, just like this. You guys see here? I'm going back to the original. Very very blue, very very cold, and just by increasing, you know, a little bit, get warmer. +10 on temperature scale, and you bring some more light in the face. I quite like that much better. However, there's one thing that I really do not like in this exposure, and it's the glasses. Do you see the effect that the magnification of his glasses? You see how it looks. You've got the line of his face, and suddenly because of the magnification, right? You jump back to reality, and suddenly his face is just not as narrow as it looks. So to me, I don't know. It bothers me a bit. Maybe that's the creative thing that you wanted to put in this exposure. I don't know. To me, that's the only thing that bothers me a bit. What we can see here, clearly it was shot with natural light, and you can see in the background, and I'll do a video on different lighting technique for when you're shooting in studio and how to bring volumes and contrast with your subject. But here we can see that a natural light such as the sun really coming from the back and give you that high line. You see it all around his back here, gives volume, and it goes really all around his shoulders, and I quite like this, especially because he's wearing a kind of a blue shirt, and he's posing in front of what looks to be the ocean, which is blue. So everything is very, very blue, and if he didn't have that, well, you know, that backlight, that would have been very, very flat. So no, overall it's interesting. It is interesting. If it wasn't for the glasses, you know, I would say drop the glasses. Doesn't matter if your model doesn't see you. You know, that would be the only thing. The rest of it, I think you've done a good job here. The next one. So that was shot with a nifty 50, guys. Yes, shot with a nifty 50, a 50mm lens, and not cropped. Matt, I think that was, you got very, very lucky on this one. That's a very, very great shot. Why am I saying this lucky? Well, I'm saying it's lucky because, you know, it's clearly is flying, right? You know, you don't find pelican just standing there, you know, in the air just like this. So he was flying, he caught the moment with a nifty 50, and everything is in proportion. Look, the ocean is at the right level, you know, that line, and the sky. I like the colors. I like everything about it. I don't know how much work you actually did in post-production. I know that you didn't crop that, you said, but I quite like it. Look at those eyes. I mean, at this eye, there's only one. Look how sharp all that is, and the peak as well. And clearly here is a challenge, right? Because you shot it with 2.2. So looking at the ISO 400, an aperture of 2.2, and a shutter speed which is way high at 3200, which is not way high when you're shooting flying animals and wildlife in general. But all that is telling me that somehow you really wanted to make sure that you could freeze the moment. However, it was still not enough. Why am I saying it's still not enough? Because if you had really frozen it, well, you would have very sharp wing here, and it's not the case. There's a couple of feathers that are not, but I'm really picking here, Matt. It's a great shot, and I love the color. It must have been a sunset, or probably a sunset or sunrise, but more likely a sunset, I expect. And it's a great shot. You know, it's panning photography, guys. It's hard to tell because it could well just be the 2.2, and shooting at nifty 50 looks very close. So I think this is panning photography. Matt, did you actually use the Rafale mode drive on your camera? You know, guys, it's the is where you can actually keep pressing the shutter button and you keep shooting. And did you use that, or did you do one lucky shot just like this? I'd like to know about it. So please add that in the comments if you can. But it's a great shot. You know, it is a really great shot, and I think because it was so close at 2.2, that's the reason why you got such a shallow depth of field, and that must be the reason as well why the wing are not all in focus. It might not be the speed the problem might just be the depth of field. So at 2.2 here, I think you were too close to use 2.2. I think with an f4 it would have been better, but an f4, what does that mean? That means that you're reducing the amount of light by 2. So by 2 ISO, you would need to bring it up to ISO 800. That's not bad. That's not bad. And why do I say the ISO, increasing the ISO rather than actually lowering the shutter speed? Well, because you're shooting wildlife, it's going very quick, so you can't afford to actually slow down your shutter speed. You need to have that very quick shutter speed. So I think, yeah, but that was definitely no plan. I don't expect Matt to have planned for that shot. I think he just caught the moment, and this is one of those exposures when you say, you know, it's great. It's not perfect but it's great, and it's perfect for the time it was shot and the action you captured. It's not perfect in the absolute, but it's perfect because you captured the moment and you didn't have much time to set everything up, and you didn't have many options, and it's just great the way it is. So good job on this one. Really good job on this one. And we finishing today with this exposure, which, because of its blurriness on the foreground, it looks pretty much like a painting, you know, and it's this postcard moment that you see sometimes when you go on holiday. And you guys, you know, I'm currently on holiday, and I'm in Lithuania right now, and you know, that's the type of shot that you want to bring home when you go somewhere. And Matt, I think you did a good job. Here was shot at 300 focal length, 300 millimeter. That's a very, very long focal length, especially when I believe is probably shot on a crop factor, on a crop sensor. So D3000, yeah, D3. I don't even know, guys. I don't know anything about Nikon in general, so I don't even know if that's a crop factor, a crop sensor or not. But anyway, shot at 200. No, sorry, it's here. Shot at 300. So what do we see? 300, the 5.6. I think Matt didn't have much choice in terms of the aperture, meaning that he could not get a wide aperture. But anyway, did he want a wide aperture? No. And I think here is the problem. To me, the only drawback of the only thing that I'm not crazy about in this exposure is the blurred forefront. You know, that whole sea that you have in front of it, between you and the boat. To me, the fact that it's not sharp, and we can see that right from the boat, it's sharp. That bothers me a bit. Why does it bother me? Because look at that line. There is a line right there, you know, where I'm putting my mouse right here. You see it, right? And it looks to me like it's almost like a cliff in the water. There's a really, you can really see where the focal plane is, and so clearly it is the focus point is on the boat, and we can see clearly where it is, and we can really see the depth of field, that everything after the boat, after the rear of the boat, is in focus. Everything before is not. So remember, guys, when you're shooting, the depth of field is not only what's behind, but it's also a portion of what's in the forefront. And here the forefront is blurred, and that bothers me a tiny bit. And what I would have done, you know, if I had that shot, what I would have probably done in post-production is kind of try to blur a little bit the rest of the water. Just so the backwater and the fore water would look pretty much the same. Other than that, the colors, I love the colors, mate. I mean, this is brilliant. This is probably a sunset again. I love the birds. You know, it's nowhere sharp, but you're shooting at 300. You know what to expect. So I think it's a really good one. And yeah, I think you didn't have much choice as well for the aperture. I think you were already ISO 400, and I think for that shot you probably should have gone to higher than that, like 800 or maybe even maybe 1600. Why? Because with this, then you narrow the aperture, so from 5.6 you can go to let's say 8, and you could even go to 11, and that you would be still okay. But the problem I think you're having is, and I want to know if you use a tripod. Matt, tell me once again, do you use a tripod? Because I'm seeing you have to use a tripod here. I don't expect you to hand hold this. This is crazy if you do. Look at a shutter speed, guys. It's 1/60th of a second. This is not that fast at all. So Matt probably used a tripod. The boat is probably moving as well, so with the wave and everything. So you still want to freeze it. So increasing the F values, meaning narrowing down the aperture, that's going to cost Matt in terms of shutter speed. So it's a tricky compromise to do. And at the same time, because you have colors and it's getting dark, you don't want to increase too much the ISO, because you're going to end up with noise. So I think overall, all that being said, it's a great shot. I like it. I like the crop, I think. Do I like the crop? Do I like the crop? I think I do, because of the gradation. I think because of the gradient looks good. But maybe, you know what, maybe, why making it so much? There was a lot of water. I'm not a big fan of squarish crop. But look at this. Matt, what do you think of this? The boat gets more value, you have less water, and you have the sky. But maybe, I would say maybe you went for this because you wanted a clear you know, kind of gradient, although it's not a true gradient, but it's kind of. So maybe you went for that half between half the sky, half the water, and the boat just happened to be on the middle line. So this is it, folks. This is all I have for this week. And thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for sending those 4 exposures. I hope you you like what I had to say about those, and please put your comments. And guys, even though you're not Matt, obviously, don't hesitate to put your comments. Tell Matt what you think of his pictures, because I think they're brilliant. It's really good, and no, it was an interesting week. So this is it. I do not know what the schedule is going to be for next week. Anyway, the forum is going to be open again, so it's going to be a new week. It's going to be week 8. Does that mean that by the end of the week I will do the video? I do not know. It all depends on you. You are the one who submit exposures. You are the one who's providing me with material to talk and to review over it. So if you don't send me anything, I can't do the review. So if by the end of this week I do not have anything, I leave it open once again and we'll wait. I appreciate it's the holiday season and people are going away and don't have much time to go in front of the computer, and myself, it's very tricky. I only have my laptop, and I'm gonna release a few videos while I'm away, but it makes things more complicated. So I appreciate it. For you it's the same thing. However, what I expect though is that if you are going on holiday, you end up having a lot of exposures to share when you come back, and that's where I'll wait for you. So until next time, this is Tom Migot saying, if you like it, well, capture it.